My husband stood up at our anniversary dinner and started telling our friends he wanted a divorce right there, in front of everyone, thinking I'd just sit there and take it quietly like the devoted wife I'd been for 20 years. What he didn't know was that I'd been recording his secret calls to his mistress. I'd already filed for divorce myself that morning, and the marital home he was planning to steal? It was never his to take. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to that night, the night that changed everything. If you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one, and you don't want to miss it. The restaurant was one of those fancy Charleston places with crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths so crisp they looked like they'd never been touched. Candles flickered on every table, casting warm shadows across the brick walls. Through the tall windows, you could see the harbor lights twinkling in the distance. It was beautiful, perfect, even. 40 people filled the private dining room, our closest friends, Richard's business partners, neighbors we'd known for years. Everyone dressed in their best clothes, holding champagne glasses, smiling at us like we were some kind of fairy tale couple. The Donovans, 20 years strong, still so in love. If only they knew. I sat at the head table in my navy dress, the one Richard always said brought out my eyes. My hands rested in my lap, fingers laced together to keep them from shaking. I'd practiced this moment in my head 100 times over the past 3 weeks. Stay calm. Stay quiet. Let him think he's winning. Richard stood up, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. He looked good, I'll give him that. New charcoal suit. Hair freshly cut. That cologne I didn't recognize, the one that had been showing up on his shirts for the past 2 months. He raised his champagne glass, and the room went quiet. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "That's what 20 years as an architect does for you. Teaches you how to present, how to sell an idea, how to make people believe whatever you want them to believe." I kept my face neutral, smiled just enough. The good wife. "Clara and I have shared 2 decades together," he continued. "We've built a life, raised 2 amazing kids, created a home." Past tense. I noticed that. So did a few others. I saw Margaret, his sister, shift in her seat, a tight smile on her thin lips. "But if I'm being honest," Richard said, and my heart started pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it, "we've grown apart." Gasps rippled through the room. Someone's fork clattered against a plate. "Life is short," he went on, looking around at everyone except me. "And I've realized that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is admit when something isn't working anymore." My friend Lydia grabbed my hand under the table. Her palm was sweaty. "So tonight, I want to announce that Clara and I are separating. We'll be filing for divorce soon, and I hope you'll all support us both as we move forward into new chapters of our lives." The room exploded into confused whispers. Heads turned toward me. I felt their eyes, pity, shock, curiosity. Someone near the back said, "Oh my God." Richard looked down at me then, and for just a second, I saw it. Satisfaction. He thought this was his moment, his clean exit, his chance to walk away from our boring marriage and into the arms of Elena Carter, the 29-year-old interior designer from his firm who wore too much perfume and laughed at all his jokes. He thought I'd cry, maybe run out of the room, play the part of the heartbroken, blindsided wife. Instead, I set down my champagne glass, slowly, carefully. I stood up. The room went dead silent. "Thank you, Richard," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. That was quite a speech. His smile faltered. Just a little. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope, the same kind he'd hidden in his desk drawer 3 weeks ago, the one labeled Property Division Confidential. "But before everyone leaves," I said, "there's something I think our guests should know." Richard's face went pale. Margaret half stood from her chair. I opened the envelope and pulled out the first page, a call log. Dates, times, phone numbers. For the past 2 months, I continued, my hands surprisingly steady now, my husband has been having an affair with a woman named Elena Carter. I have recordings of their conversations. I have text messages. I have restaurant receipts. The whispers turned into gasps. Someone said, "No way." I looked directly at Richard. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. "And this morning," I said, pulling out another document, "I filed for divorce. Not you. Me." His eyes went wide. "Oh, and one more thing," I added, my voice softer now but sharp as glass. "That house you were planning to sell in the settlement? The one overlooking the Cooper River? It was a gift from my parents before we got married. It's not marital property. It was never yours to take." The room erupted. Richard just stood there, frozen, his champagne glass still raised like a fool. And that's when I walked out head high, heart pounding, finally free. 3 weeks before that dinner, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of absolutely nothing. That's what mornings felt like now, quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful, just empty. The kids were both away at college. Emma at UNC studying biology, and Jake down at Florida State chasing some dream about sports management. The house that used to buzz with noise, backpacks thumping, cereal bowls clattering, arguments over the bathroom now just echoed. I walked onto the back porch with my coffee mug, the one that said "World's Best Mom" in chipped letters. The Cooper River stretched out in front of me, morning fog rolling across the water like a blanket. Boats bobbed in the marina down the hill. A heron stood perfectly still near the dock, waiting for fish. It was beautiful. It should have made me happy. Instead, I felt like that heron just standing there, waiting for something I couldn't name. Richard had already left for work. No goodbye kiss. No "see you tonight." Just the faint smell of his new cologne hanging in the hallway, something sharp and expensive that I didn't pick out for him. When did he start wearing that? Last month? 2 months ago? I couldn't remember, and that bothered me more than it should have. I finished my coffee and grabbed my purse. Tuesdays meant grocery shopping at Publix, then maybe Target if I felt like wandering the aisles pretending I needed throw pillows I absolutely didn't need. Routine. Comfortable. Boring. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe I'd become boring. At Publix, I ran into Susan Reynolds from down the street. She was loading organic kale into her cart like her life depended on it. "Clara, how are you, sweetheart?" She called out, her voice bright and loud the way Southern women do when they're about to ask you something personal. "Good, good," I said, forcing a smile. "Just stocking up. And Richard? Still working those crazy hours?" There it was. "Oh, you know architects," I said with a little laugh. "Always one more project." Susan nodded, but something in her eyes looked like pity. Or maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was imagining everything. I bought chicken breasts, pasta, salad mix, the same things I bought every week. At the self-checkout, I scanned my rewards card and watched the total drop by $3. Small victories. By the time I got home, it was almost noon. I put the groceries away, wiped down the counters, folded the laundry that had been sitting in the dryer since yesterday. The house was spotless. It was always spotless now. What else was there to do? I texted Richard. "Dinner at 7? 3 hours later, he replied, "Late meeting. Don't wait up." That's when the knot in my stomach started to tighten. Late meetings were happening a lot lately. So were the new clothes, crisp dress shirts I didn't iron, ties I didn't buy. He'd started going to the gym again, too, something he hadn't done since his 30s. When I asked him about it, he just said, "Trying to take better care of myself." Good for him, I thought. But why now? And why did it feel like he wasn't doing it for me? That night, I made spaghetti for one. Ate it on the couch watching some home renovation show where couples argued about open floor plans. I wondered if Richard and I had become one of those couples, the kind who stopped talking about anything that mattered. When did that happen? He came home just after 11. I was already in bed, pretending to read a book I wasn't actually reading. "Hey," he said quietly, setting his briefcase down by the dresser. "Hey," I said back. He disappeared into the bathroom. I heard the shower run for 15 minutes. When he came out, he smelled like soap and that cologne again. He climbed into bed, his back to me. "Good night," he mumbled. "Night," I whispered. The room went dark. I stared at the ceiling, listening to him breathe. We used to talk for hours in this bed, about the kids, about dreams, about stupid things that didn't matter. Now we just existed in the same space, like roommates. I must have dozed off around midnight, because the sound of his voice woke me up. At first, I thought he was talking to me, but his voice was too quiet, too careful. I opened my eyes just enough to see him sitting on the edge of the bed, his phone pressed to his ear, his shoulders hunched. "I know," he whispered. "I know it's complicated." I held my breath. "She's young, beautiful. She makes me feel alive again." My heart stopped. He paused, listening to whoever was on the other end. Then he laughed, soft, almost nervous. "After the anniversary," he said. "Everything changes after the anniversary." I squeezed my eyes shut, my pulse hammering in my ears. He ended the call, slipped back under the covers. Within minutes, his breathing slowed into sleep. I lay there in the dark, wide awake, my hands gripping the sheets. That wasn't a business call, and I wasn't imagining anything anymore. I woke up to the smell of pancakes. That should have been my first clue that something was wrong. Richard hadn't made breakfast in years, not since the kids were little, and Saturday mornings meant cartoon marathons and syrup-sticky fingers. I walked into the kitchen still in my pajamas, my eyes scratchy from barely sleeping. Richard stood at the stove, flipping golden pancakes onto a plate, humming some tune I didn't recognize. "Morning," he said brightly, turning to smile at me. "Thought I'd make your favorite, blueberry pancakes." He remembered. I stood in the doorway, watching him, my stomach twisted in knots. Less than 6 hours ago, I'd heard him on the phone saying another woman made him feel alive. Now he was making me pancakes like we were newlyweds. "You didn't have to do that," I said carefully. "I wanted to." He set a plate in front of me at the kitchen table, then poured me coffee, 2 creams, 1 sugar, exactly how I liked it. "You've been doing so much around here. Thought you deserved a break." I stared at the pancakes. They looked perfect. Warm butter melting into the edges, blueberries dotting the surface like little jewels. This was gaslighting. I'd read about it online. In those articles, women share in Facebook groups when they suspect something's off. The guilt phase. The covering up with kindness phase. "Thank you," I said quietly, picking up my fork. He sat across from me, sipping his own coffee, watching me eat. "You look beautiful this morning, you know that?" I almost choked on my bite. "I mean it," he continued, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "I don't say it enough, Clara, but you're still the most beautiful woman I know." Liar, I thought, but I smiled. "That's sweet." His phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it just for a second, and I saw his jaw tighten before he turned it face down. "Work?" I asked innocently. "Always," he said with a forced laugh. "New project deadlines. You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. He left for the office an hour later, kissing my forehead like he actually meant it. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I dumped the rest of my pancakes in the trash. Then I went straight to his office. Richard's home office was off limits most days. His creative space, he called it, filled with blueprints, design books, and a mahogany desk that cost more than our first car. I stood in the doorway, my heart pounding. "Do it, Clara. You need to know." I stepped inside and opened his desk drawer. Papers, pens, business cards, nothing unusual. I tried the filing cabinet next locked, of course. But his laptop was still sitting open on the desk, the screen dark but not closed. I tapped the space bar. "Password protected," I tried his birthday. Wrong. Our anniversary. Wrong. Emma's birthday. It unlocked. My breath caught. I clicked through his email, scanning subject lines. Work, work, spam, work. Then I saw it an email thread with Margaret, his sister. Subject, moving forward. I opened it. Margaret, you deserve better, Richard. Someone who appreciates your ambition. Clara's a lovely woman, but let's be honest, she's been coasting for years. Richard, I know. I just don't want to hurt her. Margaret, hurt is temporary. Regret is permanent. Think about your future. My hands started shaking. I kept scrolling. Another email, this one from someone named J. Caldwell, attorney at law. Subject, Property Division Draft Confidential. I clicked it. A PDF attachment loaded. Petition for divorce. Richard A. Donovan versus Clara M. Donovan. My chest felt like it was caving in. I skimmed the pages, legal language, asset lists, custody agreements. The kids were adults, so that didn't matter. Then I got to page 7. Marital property to be liquidated. 1247 Riverbank Drive, Charleston, SC primary residence. Estimated value, $850,000. To be sold and proceeds divided equally. My parents' house. The home they gave us as a wedding gift, with the porch where my dad taught Emma to fish, where my mom planted roses every spring before she died. He was trying to take it, sell it, split it down the middle like it was just another asset. I sat there, staring at the screen, my vision blurring. He didn't just want a divorce, he wanted to erase me. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Garden party this Saturday at my place. Bring Richard. We need to talk about next steps. Next steps. Right, like I was some problem they were solving together. Charleston society was built on appearances, garden parties, charity galas, Sunday brunches where everyone smiled and gossiped behind their mimosas. Margaret had always been at the center of it, dripping in pearls and judgment. She'd never liked me. Too simple, too small town, not polished enough for her precious baby brother. And now she was helping him plan my exit. I closed the laptop carefully, wiped my fingerprints off the mouse, and put everything back exactly how I found it. Then I walked into the hallway, closed the office door, and leaned against the wall. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was clear. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the lawyer's email address. Then I Googled, divorce attorneys, Charleston, SC women. If Richard wanted a war, he'd get one, but he'd never see me coming. I whispered to the empty hallway, my voice steady now. Not yet, Richard. Not yet. Lydia's name flashed on my phone screen while I was folding laundry in the bedroom. For a second, I thought about letting it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. Hey, Lyd. Clara. Her voice was tight, breathless. Are you sitting down? I sank onto the edge of the bed, a half-folded towel falling from my lap. What's wrong? She hesitated. I could hear traffic in the background, the distant sound of a boat horn echoing across the harbor. She was downtown somewhere. I just saw Richard, she said quietly, at Magnolia's, the cafe on East Bay. My stomach dropped. Okay, he's with someone. The room tilted. A woman, Lydia continued, her words coming faster now. Young, blonde. They're sitting at one of those outdoor tables, and Clara, the way he's looking at her, what does she look like? My voice sounded strange, distant. Late 20s, maybe? Wearing a white blouse, designer sunglasses. She keeps touching his arm when she laughs. I closed my eyes. The sea breeze that usually came through our bedroom window felt like ice on my skin. Clara, I'm so sorry. I didn't know if I should call, but if it were me, I'd want to know. No, you did the right thing. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. Thank you. Do you want me to come over? I'm okay. I need to think. We hung up. I sat there staring at the wall, listening to the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Young, blonde, touching his arm. She makes me feel alive again. I grabbed my laptop and opened Richard's company website. The staff page loaded rows of professional headshots with names underneath. I scrolled past architects, project managers, administrative assistants, until I found her. Elena Carter, interior designer. She was beautiful. The kind of beautiful that made you feel tired just looking at her. High cheekbones, glossy hair, a smile that probably made every man in the office stumble over their words. 29 years old, according to her LinkedIn. Graduate degree from Savannah College of Art and Design. Hired 4 months ago. 4 months. Right when Richard started wearing new cologne. I slammed the laptop shut. Richard came home around 7 that evening, his tie loosened, briefcase in hand. He looked relaxed, happy, even. "Hey," he said, dropping his keys on the kitchen counter. "What's for dinner?" I was chopping vegetables at the cutting board, my hands steady even though my pulse was racing. The knife made soft thunk sounds against the wood. "Stir fry," I said casually. "How was work?" "Busy. Long client meetings all afternoon." "Liar." I kept chopping. Carrots, celery, onions, thunk, thunk, thunk. "Where'd you go for the meetings?" I asked, my tone light. Curious, not accusatory. He opened the fridge, grabbed a beer. "Just downtown, that new place near the waterfront." "Magnolias?" He froze. Just for a heartbeat, then recovered. "Yeah, actually. Good coffee. Why?" "Lydia mentioned she saw you there." I finally looked up at him, knife still in my hand. "Said you were with a blonde woman." His face didn't change, but his jaw tightened. "Elena, from the firm. We were going over design specs for the Morrison project." "Elena Carter?" "Yeah, she's one of our designers. Smart, talented. The client specifically requested her input." I nodded slowly, turning back to the vegetables. "She's pretty. I guess I don't really notice." He took a long drink of his beer. "It was a work meeting, Clara, that's all." "Of course," I said softly. I wasn't suggesting anything else, but I was. And he knew it. He left the kitchen a few minutes later, heading upstairs to change. I heard the bedroom door close, then the sound of the shower running. I waited. Then I walked quietly into his office. His phone was charging on the desk, face up this time, screen glowing with notifications. I picked it up, my heart hammering. Password. I needed his password. I tried our anniversary again. Wrong. Emma's birthday. Wrong. Then I remembered his mother's birthday. The one date he never forgot because Margaret always made a huge deal about it. The phone unlocked. My hands were shaking now. I opened his messages and scrolled to Elena's name. The thread was long, dozens of texts going back weeks. "Richard, thinking about you." "Elena, me too. This is crazy." "Richard, I know, but it feels right." "Elena, what about her?" "Richard, after the anniversary, everything will change. I promise." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. The phone blurred in my hands. I scrolled further. "Elena, I can't wait to stop hiding." "Richard, soon. Just a few more weeks." "Elena, you're worth the wait." I took screenshots, one after another. My fingers moved on autopilot, my breath coming in short gasps. Then I heard the shower turn off. I deleted the photos from his recently deleted folder, put the phone back exactly where it was, and walked out of the office. By the time Richard came downstairs in his sweatpants and t-shirt, I was back in the kitchen, stirring vegetables in the pan like nothing had happened. "Smells good," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Thanks," I said without looking at him. We ate dinner in silence. He scrolled through his phone between bites. I pushed rice around my plate, barely tasting anything. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while he slept beside me, his breathing slow and even. After the anniversary, everything will change. He was right about that. Just not the way he thought. I whispered into the darkness, my voice steady and cold. If he's planning something, so am I. I called Aisha Cole the next morning from my car, parked in the Starbucks lot 3 blocks from our house. I needed to be somewhere Richard wouldn't accidentally overhear. Aisha and I went to college together at Charleston, Southern, roommates freshman year, study partners for every exam after that. She'd gone on to law school at Duke while I stayed home and got married. We'd stayed close, meeting for lunch every few months, texting on birthdays. She'd always been the smartest person I knew. And right now, I needed smart. Clara? Her voice was warm, surprised. Hey girl, what's going on? I need a lawyer, I said quietly. The line went silent for a beat. Then, what happened? I told her everything. The late-night phone call, the emails with Margaret, the lunch with Elena, the draft divorce papers hidden in Richard's office. My voice stayed steady the whole time, even when my hands were shaking around my coffee cup. When I finished, Aisha let out a long breath. That son of a... She stopped herself. Okay, listen to me. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? Yes. Good. Don't tell Richard where you're going. And Clara? Yeah? Bring any documents you can, emails, bank statements, the deed to your house, everything. Aisha's law office sat in a historic building downtown, all exposed brick and tall windows overlooking the Ashley River. She met me at the door herself, pulling me into a hug that felt like the first safe thing I'd experienced in weeks. Come on, she said, leading me to her office. Let's talk. She closed the door behind us, and I sank into the leather chair across from her desk. She sat down, her expression serious but kind. First things first, Aisha said, pulling out a legal pad. That house, you said your parents gave it to you as a wedding gift? Yes. Before we got married, it was in my name originally, but we added Richard to the deed after the wedding because... I trailed off. Because that's what married people do, I guess. Aisha nodded, writing notes. Do you have the original deed? Any documentation showing it was a premarital gift? I think so. In our safe deposit box. Get it. That's your first weapon. She looked up at me. South Carolina law is tricky with marital property, but if you can prove that house was a gift from your family before the marriage, you've got a strong case to keep it separate from the divorce settlement. Relief flooded through me. Really? Really? He's banking on you not knowing your rights. Don't let him. She leaned forward. Now, about those emails and text messages you found, we need copies of everything. Can you access his laptop again? I nodded. Good. Also, I want you to start documenting everything. If he makes calls late at night, note the time. If he comes home smelling like perfume, write it down. If he lies about where he's been, record it. Record it, like actually record him. South Carolina is a one-party consent state for recording, Aisha explained. That means you can legally record conversations you're a part of. If he tells you he's working late and you suspect he's lying, record it. We might need it. My mind was spinning. I'd never thought of myself as someone who would spy on her own husband, but he'd already been spying on me, planning my exit without giving me a say. One more thing, Aisha said. Open a bank account in your name only. Start moving money into it, just your share, nothing suspicious. If he's planning to file, he might freeze your accounts. You need financial independence. I felt something shift inside me. Not sadness anymore. Strategy. Thank you, I whispered. We're going to get through this, Aisha said firmly. And Clara, you're stronger than you think. I drove home with a stack of documents in my passenger seat and a plan forming in my head. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel helpless. I felt dangerous. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw the mailbox flag up. I grabbed the stack of envelopes, bills, grocery store ads, credit card offers, and one thick, cream-colored envelope addressed to me. The return address made my heart skip. Patterson and Associates, Estate Attorneys, Wilmington, NC. I sat in the car and opened it with shaking hands. Dear Mrs. Donovan, we are writing to inform you that your late godmother, Virginia May Hartwell, has passed away and named you as the primary beneficiary of her estate. I scanned the letter, my eyes catching on numbers that didn't seem real. $2.5 million in bonds and securities. One residential property, 4,782 Gulf Shore Drive, Naples, Florida. I read it twice. Then, 3 times. Virginia, my mom's best friend, the woman who taught me to paint watercolors on her porch every summer, who sent me birthday cards with $20 bills tucked inside, even after I turned 40. She'd left me everything. I sat there in my car, the letter trembling in my hands, and suddenly I wasn't cornered anymore. I wasn't the woman with nowhere to go, nothing to fall back on, no power. I had options. I had freedom. And Richard had no idea. I folded the letter carefully, tucked it into my purse, and walked into the house. Richard was in the living room, watching ESPN, a beer in his hand. "Mail come?" he asked without looking at me. "Just junk," I said lightly. He nodded, eyes still on the TV. I went upstairs to our bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. Then I smiled just faintly, just enough. "He thinks I'm cornered," I whispered to myself. "Let him." The text came through on a Thursday afternoon while I was pretending to care about throw pillows at HomeGoods. Richard, anniversary dinner. Saturday night, Harborview Restaurant. Invited some friends and business partners. Wear something nice. I stared at the screen, my fingers frozen over a decorative cushion that said, "Home Sweet Home," in cursive letters. This was it. The moment he'd been building toward. After the anniversary, everything will change. I texted back, "Sounds lovely. Can't wait." My phone buzzed again almost immediately, this time from Margaret. "Margaret, so excited for Saturday. It'll be a night to remember. Richard has something special planned. XX. A night to remember." Special plans. The throw pillow slipped from my hands. A woman nearby gave me a concerned look, but I just smiled and picked it up, my mind racing. He was going to do it in public. Announce the divorce in front of everyone, friends, colleagues, neighbors. Make me look like the surprised, pitiful wife who never saw it coming. Control the narrative before I had a chance to tell my side. And Margaret was in on it. Of course she was. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tight. The Cooper River sparkled in the afternoon sun, boats cutting through the water like nothing was wrong, like the world wasn't about to crack open. By the time I pulled into the driveway, something had shifted inside me. Not panic, not fear, clarity. If Richard wanted a performance, I'd give him one, but the script would be mine. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, a legal pad beside me, and Aisha on speakerphone. "He's going to ambush you," she said, her voice steady but urgent, "in front of witnesses so you can't fight back without looking unstable or vindictive." "I know." My pen tapped against the notepad. "So what do I do?" "You beat him to it." I could hear papers rustling on her end. "We file tomorrow morning. First thing. That way, when he makes his announcement, you're already ahead of him legally." My chest tightened. "Tomorrow? Clara, you have everything we need. The deed to the house, showing it was a premarital gift, the screenshots of his messages with Elena, bank statements showing he's been moving money. We file, and suddenly he's the one on the defensive." I wrote "file tomorrow" in capital letters, underlining it twice. "What about Saturday?" I asked. "Do I just sit there and let him talk?" "No." Aisha's voice turned sharp. You let him think he's winning, then you pull the rug out. She walked me through it, what to say, what not to say, how to stay calm when every instinct would be screaming at me to run or cry or throw something. Bring copies of the filing, she said. When he announces the divorce, you show everyone that you filed first. You control the story. I looked down at my notes, my handwriting shaky but determined. Stay calm, stay quiet, let him talk, then strike. Aisha? My voice cracked just slightly. What if I can't do this? You can, she said firmly, because you already have. Friday morning, I stood in Aisha's office while she filed the paperwork electronically. My hands shook as I signed my name on the petition, the pen feeling impossibly heavy. Clara M. Donovan, petitioner. Richard A. Donovan, respondent. It was real now. Legally, officially real. He'll be served on Monday, Aisha said, sliding the documents into a manila envelope. But Saturday? Saturday you have the advantage. I took the envelope, holding it against my chest like a shield. That afternoon, I went shopping. Not for throw pillows this time, for armor. I found a navy dress at a boutique downtown, the kind that made you look elegant and untouchable. Simple, classic, the opposite of desperate or blindsided. I bought new heels too, the kind that made a statement when you walked. At home, I practiced in front of the bathroom mirror. Thank you, Richard. That was quite a speech. My voice wavered. I tried again. Thank you, Richard. That was quite a speech. Better. Calmer. I rehearsed, pulling out the envelope. Not too fast, that would look frantic. Slow, deliberate. Like I'd been planning this all along. Because I had. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. Richard was already up, whistling in the shower like this was just another day. Like tonight wasn't the night he planned to destroy me in front of 40 people. I made coffee with steady hands, drank it on the back porch, watching the river catch the morning light. My phone buzzed. A text from Lydia. You okay? Want me to come over before tonight? I typed back. I'm ready. Because I was. In the bedroom, I laid out my dress, my shoes, the manila envelope. Then I reached into my jewelry box and pulled out something I'd bought yesterday at an electronics store, a tiny voice recorder, small enough to fit in my purse. South Carolina was a one-party consent state. Aisha had reminded me 3 times. If Richard said anything incriminating tonight about Elena, about his plans, about the house, I'd have proof. I slipped the recorder into my purse, tested it twice to make sure it worked, then tucked the envelope beside it. Evidence, power, control. Everything he thought he'd taken from me. At 6:30, I stood in front of the mirror one last time. Navy dress, hair swept back, lipstick that didn't smudge. I looked like the woman I used to be before the empty mornings, before the silence, before I realized my husband was planning to erase me. Richard appeared in the doorway, adjusting his cufflinks. You look nice, he said, almost surprised. Thank you. I met his eyes in the mirror. Big night. Yeah, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Big night. We drove to the restaurant in silence, the city lights blurring past the windows. My purse sat in my lap, the recorder inside, already running. My heart hammered against my ribs. My hands felt cold despite the warm evening air, but my mind was clear. Richard wanted a show, wanted to humiliate me, control the narrative, walk away looking like the victim of a stale marriage. I glanced at him as he drove, his jaw set, his fingers drumming the steering wheel, so confident, so certain. He had no idea what was coming. I whispered to myself, so quietly he couldn't hear. He wanted a show. He'd get one. The Harbor View restaurant glowed like something out of a magazine. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light across white tablecloths that looked too perfect to touch. Through the tall windows, the harbor stretched out dark and endless, dotted with lights from boats swaying in the evening breeze. 40 people filled the private dining room. Our friends, Richard's business partners, neighbors we'd barbecued with, couples we'd known for years. Everyone dressed in their best, holding champagne glasses, smiling at us like we were still the perfect couple. The Donovans. 20 years. Still going strong. I sat at the head table in my navy dress, my purse resting in my lap. Inside it, the recorder captured every sound, silverware clinking, soft laughter, the jazz music floating from speakers hidden in the walls. My hands stayed folded on the table, fingers laced together to keep them from shaking. Stay calm, stay quiet, let him think he's winning. Across from me, Margaret dabbed at her lips with a napkin, her pearl earrings catching the light. She kept glancing at Richard, then at me, a tight smile on her thin face. She knew. She'd probably helped him plan every word. Richard stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. The room quieted, conversations trailing off mid-sentence, heads turned toward us. He looked good. New charcoal suit, hair perfectly styled, that expensive cologne I still didn't recognize wafting across the table. He raised his champagne glass high. The room went completely silent. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice smooth and practiced. 20 years of presenting blueprints to clients had taught him how to command a room. It means the world to have you celebrate this milestone with us. Us. The word felt like a lie. I kept my face neutral, smiled just enough. The good wife, one last time. "Clara and I have shared 2 decades together," Richard continued, his eyes scanning the room everywhere except at me. "We built a life, raised 2 incredible kids, created a home." Past tense, I noticed. So did Lydia, sitting 3 tables away. Her eyes widened slightly. My heart started pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. My fingers tightened around each other beneath the table. "But if I'm being honest," Richard said, pausing for effect, "we've grown apart." Gasps rippled through the room. Someone's fork clattered against a plate. Margaret pressed her hand to her chest like she was shocked, but her eyes stayed cold and knowing. "Life is short," he went on, looking around at faces frozen in confusion. "And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is admit when something isn't working anymore." Kindest. He actually said kindest. "So tonight, I want to announce that Clara and I are separating." His voice stayed steady, almost rehearsed. "We'll be filing for divorce soon, and I hope you'll all support us both as we begin new chapters." The room exploded into whispers. Shocked faces turned toward me. I felt their stares: pity, confusion, curiosity. Someone near the back whispered, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." Richard finally looked down at me, and for just a second, I saw it. Satisfaction. Relief. He thought this was his clean exit. His moment to walk away looking noble and honest while I sat there, the blindsided wife who never saw it coming. He lifted his glass slightly, almost like a toast. "Thank you, Clara, for the memories." The room held its breath. I set down my champagne glass. Slowly, carefully. Then I stood up. The whispers stopped. Every eye in the room locked on me. "Thank you, Richard," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "That was quite a speech." His smile faltered. Just barely. I reached into my purse and pulled out the manila envelope. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They felt steady, strong. "But before everyone leaves," I continued, looking around the room at 40 stunned faces, "there's something I think our guests should know." Richard's face went pale. Margaret half rose from her chair, her mouth opening like she wanted to stop me. I pulled out the first-page call logs, dates, times, phone numbers highlighted in yellow. "For the past 2 months," I said clearly, my voice cutting through the silence, "my husband has been having an affair with a woman named Elena Carter. I have recordings of their conversations, text messages, restaurant receipts." The gasps turned into shocked murmurs. Someone said, "No way." Someone else said, "Is she here?" I looked directly at Richard. His jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. His champagne glass trembled in his hand. "And this morning," I said, pulling out another document, "I filed for divorce. Not you, Richard. Me." His eyes went wide. His face turned from pale to red, confusion and fury flashing across his features. "Oh, and one more thing," I added, my voice softer now but sharp as broken glass. "That house you were planning to sell in the settlement, the one overlooking the Cooper River?" I held up the deed, the old one with my parents' signatures still visible. "It was a gift from my parents before we got married. It's not marital property. It was never yours to take." The room erupted. People stood up, talking over each other. Margaret's face went white. She sank back into her chair, hiding her face behind her hand. Near the back, a blonde woman in a white blouse stood up abruptly, Elena. Her face flushed red as heads turned toward her. She grabbed her purse and rushed toward the exit, heels clicking frantically against the floor. I wasn't finished. "And Richard?" I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. "My godmother passed away last month. She left me $2.5 million and a house in Florida." I smiled, small, cold, final. "So you don't need to worry about me. I'll be just fine." Richard just stood there, frozen, his champagne glass still raised like a fool. His mouth opened, but no words came out. His carefully planned moment had shattered around him. Margaret stared at me, her pearl necklace clutched in one hand, her face a mask of shock and humiliation. I picked up my purse, tucked the envelope back inside, and looked at Richard one last time. "You wanted freedom, Richard," I said quietly, just loud enough for him to hear. "Now you're free with nothing." Then I walked out of that restaurant head high, heart pounding, finally, completely free. Behind me, the room exploded into noise, but I didn't look back, not even once. By Monday morning, the entire city knew. Charleston wasn't a big city, not really. It was the kind of place where everyone knew someone who knew someone else. Garden club ladies texted their bridge partners. Church groups whispered over coffee. Country club members gossiped over mimosas at brunch. And the story of Richard Donovan's failed public divorce announcement spread like wildfire. I sat on my back porch with my coffee, watching the river and scrolling through my phone. 3 missed calls from neighbors, just checking in. 7 text messages from friends I hadn't heard from in months. Even Emma called from college, her voice tight with worry. "Mom, are you okay?" Dad called, and he sounded, I don't know, kind of desperate. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said calmly. "Better than fine, actually." "Is it true? About the affair?" I took a breath. "Yes, it's true." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Good for you, Mom. I mean it." Those 4 words made my chest ache in the best way. By Tuesday, the fallout had begun. Lydia called me from the grocery store, her voice hushed and excited. "Clara, you won't believe this. I just ran into Patricia Morrison, Richard's biggest client." She told me they're pulling their contract with his firm. I set down my tea. "What?" She said she can't work with someone who lacks integrity. Those were her exact words. Lydia paused. "Apparently, 3 other clients have done the same thing." I should have felt guilty, should have felt bad that Richard's business was crumbling. But all I felt was a quiet, steady sense of justice. He'd planned to destroy my life without a second thought. Now his was unraveling, and I hadn't even had to lift a finger. Charleston society had done it for me. Wednesday brought more news. Margaret called, not me, but she left a voicemail I played on speaker while folding laundry. "Richard, this is your sister." Her voice was clipped, furious. "I just got a call from Linda at the tennis club. Everyone is talking. They're asking me questions, blaming me for encouraging you. This is your mess. Don't expect me to clean it up." I saved the voicemail, played it twice more just to hear the panic in her voice. Karma had a way of finding everyone eventually. By Thursday, Elena Carter had left town. Lydia heard it from someone at the salon. Elena's apartment was empty, her voicemail disconnected, her profile on the firm's website quietly removed. She'd vanished like she'd never existed at all. I wondered if Richard missed her, if he'd tried to call, if he realized yet that she'd never really wanted him, just the fantasy of him, the successful architect, the man willing to leave his wife, the escape plan that didn't require her to build anything real. Now he had nothing. No wife, no mistress, no clients, just an empty house and a reputation in ruins. Friday morning, I met Aisha at the bank. "We're freezing the joint accounts," she explained as we sat across from a nervous-looking bank manager. "He's been moving money without your knowledge. That stops today." The manager typed on his computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Done. Both accounts are frozen pending the divorce settlement. Neither party can withdraw funds without court approval." I signed the paperwork, my hand steady, and felt another piece of control click back into place. Afterward, Aisha walked me to my car, her briefcase swinging at her side. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Better than I thought I would." I unlocked the car door. "Is that weird?" "No," she smiled. "It's called freedom." Saturday, I started packing. Not everything, just the things that mattered. My art supplies, still boxed up from years ago when I'd convinced myself I was too busy to paint. My grandmother's quilt, the one with the hand-stitched flowers she'd made before I was born. Photo albums from when the kids were little. My mother's jewelry box. The house felt lighter already, like it knew I was leaving. Like it was ready to be mine again, not ours, just mine. I was upstairs wrapping picture frames in newspaper when I heard the front door open. "Clara?" Richard's voice, tired, broken. I came down the stairs slowly, a framed photo of Emma and Jake still in my hands. He stood in the hallway, looking smaller than I remembered. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, he hadn't shaved. "What are you doing here?" I asked calmly. "I needed to see you." He took a step forward. "Clara, we can fix this." I stared at him. Actually stared. Like I was seeing a stranger. "Fix this?" I repeated slowly. "I made a mistake. A huge mistake. But we've been together 20 years, that has to mean something. We can go to counseling, start over. I'll do whatever it takes." I set the photo down on the hall table. Carefully, deliberately. "Richard," I said, my voice steady as stone, "you didn't make a mistake. You made a plan. You drafted divorce papers. You scheduled a public humiliation. You tried to steal my house." I looked him straight in the eyes. "We can't fix something you planned to destroy." His face crumpled. "Clara, please." "No." The word came out firm. "Final. You wanted this divorce. You're getting it. But on my terms now. Not yours." He stood there for a moment, his shoulders sagging. Then he turned and walked out without another word. The door closed behind him with a soft click. I picked up the photo again and carried it to the kitchen, where boxes waited to be filled. 2 weeks later, I sat in Aisha's office with a pen in my hand and a stack of papers in front of me. "Final settlement agreement," she said, sliding the document toward me. "The house stays yours. He gets his retirement account and half the liquid assets. No alimony either way. Clean break." I read through the pages one last time. Every line, every clause, everything I'd fought for. Then I signed my name at the bottom. Clara M. Donovan. My hand didn't shake, not even a little. Aisha smiled. "It's official. You're free." I looked down at my signature, strong, clear, permanent. "Yeah," I whispered. "I am." Outside the window, Charleston stretched out bright and alive. The harbor sparkled. Palmetto trees swayed in the breeze. Somewhere out there, Richard was dealing with the consequences of his choices. But I wasn't thinking about him anymore. I was thinking about Florida, about painting, about the second chapter I never knew I'd get to write. And for the first time in 20 years, I couldn't wait to see what came next. 6 months later, I woke up to sunlight streaming through white curtains and the sound of waves rolling onto the shore. Naples, Florida was nothing like Charleston. No humidity that clung to your skin, no historic homes packed too close together. No whispers following you through the grocery store or eyes watching from behind garden gates. Just open sky, sugar-white sand, and the endless blue-green gulf stretching out as far as I could see. I padded barefoot across cool tile floors to my studio, the sunroom at the back of Virginia's house, my house now. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the water, palm trees swaying gently in the morning breeze. My easel stood in the center of the room, surrounded by canvases, paint tubes, brushes soaking in jars of water. I'd started painting again, not just dabbling or pretending I'd get back to it someday, really painting. Every morning before the heat set in, I'd stand here with a brush in my hand and let the colors spill out: ocean blues, sunset oranges, soft pinks that reminded me of the hibiscus flowers growing wild in the garden. For the first time in 20 years, I felt like myself again. By 10 o'clock, my students started arriving. I taught small classes, now just 5 or 6 people at a time. Retirees mostly, women who'd spent their lives raising kids and managing households and never had time to pick up a brush. They came with nervous smiles and uncertain hands, apologizing before they even started. "I'm not very good," they'd say. "Neither was I'd tell them. "That's why we practice." Today's class was working on seascapes. Margaret, not Richard's sister, but a sweet 60-year-old from Michigan, was struggling with her waves. "They look too stiff," she said, frowning at her canvas. I came up beside her, dipping a brush into white paint mixed with the faintest touch of blue. "Waves aren't solid, they're movement. See?" I added a loose, flowing stroke across her canvas. "Let the brush dance. Don't control it so much." She tried again, and this time the wave curved and rolled like something alive. "That's it," I said, smiling. She beamed at me, her face lighting up the way Emma's used to when she finally understood a math problem. After class, we sat on the back patio drinking iced tea and talking about nothing important: the pelicans diving for fish, the new restaurant opening downtown, the heat that never seemed to let up. I laughed. Actually laughed, the kind that comes from your belly and feels like breathing again. That evening, after everyone had gone home, I sat at my kitchen table sorting through the mail: bills, catalogs, a postcard from Lydia, who'd visited last month and was already planning another trip. And then I saw a cream-colored envelope with familiar handwriting: Richard. My first instinct was to throw it away. But curiosity won. I opened it carefully, pulling out a single sheet of paper covered in his neat, architect's handwriting. "Dear Clara, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve to write this letter. But I needed you to know that I'm sorry. I was selfish, arrogant. I convinced myself that our marriage had died when really, I was the one who stopped trying. I blamed you for my unhappiness when the problem was me all along. Elena's gone. The firm is struggling. Margaret won't speak to me. I know I deserve all of it. But the worst part isn't losing the business or the house or even my reputation. It's knowing I lost you, the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was too proud and too foolish to see what I had. You deserved better. You deserved everything. I hope Florida is everything you wanted it to be. Richard." I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and set it on the table. For a moment, I felt something like sadness. Not for him. For the 20 years we'd spent building something that wasn't strong enough to last. For the version of us that could have been happy if he'd just tried. But then I looked out the window at the palm trees silhouetted against the sunset, at the studio where my half-finished paintings waited, at the life I'd built from the ruins of the one he tried to destroy. And I realized I didn't feel sad at all. I felt free. That night, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine and watched the sun sink into the gulf. The sky turned pink, then orange, then deep purple, the kind of colors I'd tried to capture on canvas but never quite could. I thought about Richard's letter, about Elena and Margaret and all the people who'd chosen sides, about the dinner where everything changed and the 6 months that followed. And I thought about what I'd learned. He'd wanted someone younger, someone who made him feel alive and important and new again, someone who didn't remind him that he was getting older, that his dreams were smaller than he'd hoped, that life was ordinary sometimes. But I'd wanted something different, something quieter, something real. I'd wanted peace. And peace, I realized, staring out at the endless water, was far more beautiful than youth. It didn't need validation, didn't need applause or admiration. It didn't demand anything except that you show up for yourself every single day and choose your own happiness over someone else's expectations. Richard had chosen excitement. I'd chosen peace. And I'd won. I picked up my phone and opened the voice memo app, something I'd been doing lately, recording thoughts, memories, lessons learned. 6 months ago, I said softly, I stood in a restaurant and told the truth in front of 40 people. It was the scariest thing I've ever done, but it was also the moment I took my life back. I paused, watching the last sliver of sun disappear below the horizon. If you're going through something similar, if someone's trying to write your story for you, remember this: you're stronger than you think, braver than you know, and you deserve a life that's yours, not theirs. I stopped the recording and smiled. Tomorrow, I'd wake up to more sunlight, more painting, more laughter with students who were becoming friends, more moments that were mine and mine alone. The divorce was final. The house was mine. The future was wide open. And for the first time in a very long time, I couldn't wait to see what came next. Would you have walked away or fought back? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if you love stories where truth wins and resilience triumphs, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because every ending is really just a new beginning in disguise.